It's
You
great to
too.
meet you. You got so much going on, so I'm ready to peel back the layers and get into and get
It's a
into
lot.
it. So to begin our journey, I want to ask you this. 4.5 years or so ago, we were trying to figure out this pandemic, and I know we're getting into COVID fatigue, but it was such a big deal for all of us. How did you survive the pandemic, and how did it change the way that you do things now?
One of the things that kind of run in my head, the little sayings that run in my head since the pandemic, um, if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. And what I mean by that is, or what whoever said it first meant by it, is that so many people were unable to take advantage of all the things and support that came from us being in the middle of a pandemic, like support for small businesses, the PPP loans, all those things, because they weren't ready. They were running their businesses, kind of under the table, or didn't have all their paperwork, or didn't have all of their financials, or whatever it may have been. And so that's kind of like my mantra now. If you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. And one of the first things now, we may have started working on that later. When I work with new entrepreneurs, we really start to get them legit right from the start. Versus we may have waited until they were kind of got a little bit of traction. But now we start right away because so many businesses here in the Twin Cities. Because remember, we had the pandemic here, but we also had George Floyd. So
Yes.
there are a lot of businesses that got just kind of wiped out during that time, and they weren't able to recover in part because they weren't ready.
So let's get to the heart and soul of all of these things that are on paper that are a part of you. I want to kind of simplify this to a certain degree. So I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of third graders at career day. And one of the kids is curious and they say, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" What's your answer?
If it's third graders, I help people start and grow businesses. That's what I do. Yeah. So I'm a business consultant, and I work with the entrepreneurs in all different types of areas. So I'm a professor of entrepreneurship at Metropolitan State University. I'm also a consultant, and I work one-on-one with entrepreneurs who want to start and grow their businesses. And I also support and work through organizations that work with entrepreneurs. So companies like Connect Up or Women Venture here in the Twin Cities.
So what did you want to be in the third grade? What was your dream?
In the third grade, I think I was going to be a teacher.
Okay.
I liked to write. I liked composition, not necessarily creative writing, but I liked grammar and composition. So
So speaking of composition, what was your favorite book growing up?
that's. I'm first of all, I'm old. So, but there was I want to say there was something Beezus. It was a young girl. It was like a little preteen series, but I can't remember the author to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a long time ago.
Yes, I get it. I've been around a while myself. So let's get to the heart and soul of how this journey into being an entrepreneur began for you. Take me back to where you were born and raised. What were the foundational seeds that were planted into you that harvested into this evolution of who you are today?
Yeah. So, I was born in Memphis, Tennessee, and in what was really now considered to be one of the most difficult areas in the United States. Obviously, my parents probably didn't realize that when they were there and growing up. My parents were quite young when I was born, and my dad joined the military right away. So we moved away when I was but an infant, and moved to Colorado, where my dad was in the Air Force. And we moved around a lot because he started in the military and then moved into retail. And if you know anything about being in retail, the further up you move, the more you move, right?
Yeah.
So we went back to Tennessee, went to Florida, back to Colorado. We were kind of all over the place. But the things that really, I think both my sister and I would absolutely recognize were things that were instilled in us was we were never told there was something that we couldn't do.
Yeah.
There was never an option to not do something that we wanted to do. And whether it was my parents kind of making it happen for us in terms of providing the resources or just supporting us to this day, that is the philosophy in our family. And it's something that I hopefully instill in my daughter. And I can see some of that in her for sure. She's going on to be a dentist. Um, but yeah, it was never a thing that someone else outside of you was going to stop you from doing something. So,
What was the best advice you've ever gotten?
the best advice that I ever got was that everyone can't be an entrepreneur.
Interesting.
I don't know if
Yeah.
that's advice or just a statement, but it really is something that now I'm always assessing and looking for that thing or those things in entrepreneurs so that we can save them time, save them money, save them effort, and then kind of move on with those who we can really put our resources behind. Yeah, it's not meant for everyone.
Yeah, for
For a lot
sure.
of
No, I get that totally. So let me ask you this. What was the first client that you had that you saw that spark in their eyes and you felt like this is my calling? This is what I need to be doing with my life.
Okay, so I worked for a company called Target. We probably all know it for almost 20 years. And about midway through that journey, I started to kind of get this itch that I needed to do something different. I started volunteering, and I actually started a company that helped support entrepreneurs in the Twin Cities and give them some visibility around the state. And through that work, someone reached out to me. This is the first real kind of consulting gig that I had. It was obviously just me giving advice, but it was a company, a guy who worked at Target. He was looking to start a company called Spark DJ. And through my work with him, first of all, I knew right away that he had it. He had that the tenacity. He knew how to analyze his industry, how to understand who his customer was, and some of that was from working at Target, right? So he had those foundational elements, and he also had the vision to understand that I can start here, but there's a place that I want to be in 5, 10 years. And so through that work, I actually worked with him. He ended up making it into as a semifinalist or a finalist in the Min Cup, which is one of the largest entrepreneurship competitions in the country. He got over $1 million valuation in his business and ended up going into Techstars. So, I mean, I saw that in his eye, not just because of who he was from a personality standpoint, which is a big piece of it, but what he was willing to do and learn and be curious about in order to not make mistakes.
So who's a hero for you? Who's been an inspiration for you in your career?
I know my dad and my parents probably are my biggest inspiration. We're still really close. And watching, I think what my dad is in my dad is in his 70s. Like my mom is approaching 70 fairly quickly here. And what they were able to show me is with the right network and the right attitude, you can overcome amazing obstacles. My
Wow.
dad actually picked cotton in Memphis when he was a kid with
Wow.
his stepdad. And so for him to go from that and now being Dr. Whitmore is a pretty big thing. And knowing that he was able to do it because he saw things outside of himself. And his mom was she was a medical assistant, and but she also cleaned houses. And he would go with her to clean houses and watch her work. And he saw the things and the way other people lived, and that inspired him. And so, him being able to move from where they started to where they are now and instill the things that they did in my sister and I, absolutely, without a doubt, they're my biggest inspiration.
So
Yep.
of all the entrepreneurs that are on the planet right now, if you could meet up and hang out with one that you admire, who would that be? Who would you love to spend some time with?
Wow. Gosh, that's a great question. There's actually, Ramit Sethi is probably the person I want to meet.
Yeah.
We're actually doing some similar work, and so I would love to sit down and because first of all, he has an amazing way of working with people that is both direct but yet nurturing.
Yeah.
And so I really, really admire that about him. I also love how he's grown this business. He started it when he was in college. I mean, he was a kid when he started his company, and to watch it grow and get so big and help so many people. I think I would like to sit down with him.
So if you could, if what is the motivation every day for you? What is that gumption every day to wake up to do this work where you're genuinely helping people, but you also have to hold enough back to evolve as a human? What is that collective gas in your tank every day?
Yeah. So the first part, to your point is, there are people out there who want to be entrepreneurs, and they have that thing, they have that spark, they have those personality traits, and I feel like it's my job to bring some structure around what it is they want to accomplish and their vision, and give them the tools to get to where they want to be. But for me, I just love working with people who have these ideas that no one has ever thought of, or no one in their family has thought of, or their friends are kind of naysayers, but I see it. So that is the most exciting part, is when an entrepreneur is just getting started or is just getting ready to pivot or grow their business substantially. That's the exciting part. So for me, that really fuels me, is having those conversations about, okay, let's talk about how we're going to meet this customer's need and what is it that we're going to do. So that's the exciting part.
So let's say you have a dream tonight. You run into an 18-year-old version of you, and you can give that young version of you a piece of advice based on this life you've lived, the wisdom you've accumulated. What advice would you dispense on that young version of you?
Learn about money, learn how money works before you apply for that credit card that they give you with, all those applications that you get when you're a freshman in college. Before you start filling out 5 of those applications and run up $5,000 in debt, learn how money works. And it's tragic. And I think about when I was even in junior high, at least we learned how to do a budget. We had home ec, you learned how to cook, you learned how to do a budget, all that stuff. They don't even learn that anymore. And so, really, my journey over the past 10 to 15 years from a financial standpoint has been about learning how money works, learning how our financial system actually works, learning how the stock market works. Just those things that I think are fundamental to being successful here in the United States, that whether it's on purpose or whatever, we just don't teach people. So
Yeah, no, that's great. And that is one of those things they just don't teach in curricula. It's like money, relationships, all of these things that are cornerstones of our lives that we hold on to dearly for the rest of our lives. We have to figure it out on our own. We're like musicians just released into the wild. Go ahead and get on stage.
yep. Not only do we have to learn it, but like no one, even outside of school, no one talks about
No.
these things.
Uh-uh.
I mean, as far as you see in the world, everyone's just fine,
Yeah.
right?
Uh-huh.
Everyone's relationship is perfect.
Yep.
Everyone's financial situation is just fine. No one is actually talking about these things, and so we really have to talk about it.
So of all of the things that you've done and evolved into and achieved in your life, what are you the proudest of?
Um, I am the proudest of teaching my daughter some of the things that I didn't know,
Yeah.
right? And whether it was because it just wasn't being taught, or even at the time, again, my parents were super young when they had my daughter, or my sister and I, and that they just didn't know. So having accumulated some of that knowledge to be able to pass on to her earlier than when I got it, I think that's really what I'm most proud of, and seeing her be smarter and more savvy, and because she's 28 years old, she knows things that and cares about things that I was trying to go to the club, like what, like,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's pretty incredible to see how she's taken some of the things that I'm hoping she's gotten from me. So
So if of all the people that know you, family, friends, clients, colleagues, everyone around you, they all have this perception of you. But ultimately you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Um, I think that I am a strategist. I think that that's where I live. That's what I love. Seeing where someone is, or even myself where I am today, and envisioning a future, and planning the steps out to get there. I think I'm definitely that. I'm also a true crime lover. So I am, for better or for worse, right? Sometimes I go to sleep watching true crime, and I think a lot of people wouldn't necessarily think of me as being that. Um, I'm also probably harder on myself than most people would be on me, right? And I have standards that are sometimes unrealistic for myself and unreachable. But I also have the idea that if I don't have a stretch goal, then I'm only going to get so far, right? So I have to have something I'm always looking for. And even though I'm going to be 54 in December, I don't see myself stopping anytime soon. I just don't see it. My parents haven't stopped. My sister isn't stopping. I don't see us stopping anytime soon. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's say we get off this call, time machine pulls up. You can go anywhere in the history and time and see one event with your own eyes. Where are you going to go?
I'm going to go to Prince's last performance in
Oh,
Atlanta before he died.
wow. What a great answer. You knew that. That came right out.
Yeah.
That's
Yep.
wonderful. Yeah, there was really cool stories back in the day when he would come and play in Kansas City, and there was a club called the Grand Emporium, and it was kind of
Mhm.
an old blues club. And he would go up there and they would close the door and say, "We're selling 100 tickets," and he would blow the roof off of that place.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
I was lucky enough to move to Minneapolis when I was 21,
yeah.
in 1991. And so I've seen him perform, more times than I could probably count in
Wow.
very intimate settings at Paisley Park. Um, and it was every Wednesday and Saturday night he would throw these parties. And, I remember one night his DJ didn't show up or something happened, and he was DJing. And I made a comment that he should probably keep his day job because he was playing like the most obscure, like no
Sure.
one knew stuff he was playing.
Uh-huh.
Um, I was 20 something and stupid, but yeah, yeah. So I'm pretty fortunate to have been able to experience that. But I would
Absolutely.
love to have been there at that last
Yeah.
performance.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. If anyone wants to reach out, hire you, any of the good business, where do they go?
Yeah, so you can absolutely connect with me on LinkedIn. The great thing is my name is Luana Whitmore. I'm the only one in the world. If you Google me, like those are all me, all of the ones that show up.
That's
You can also visit me on my website, luanawhitmore.com, or at nextfemmefinancial.com, which is my new company that I'm launching pretty soon.
Lawana, thank you. Thank you for your story. Thank you for your time. Continued success.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you. Take care.